Well, Laura, moments ago, Kyle Shanahan said that not only has Christian McCaffrey been lost for the season, but running back Jordan Mason also suffered a high ankle sprain and also will go on injured reserve. So McCaffrey will be placed on injured reserve with a PCL injury. Jordan Mason will be placed on injured reserve with a high ankle sprain. And that now will leave Isaac Guerendo as the starting running back of the former NFC champion 49ers as they head into the stretch drive. Guerendo becomes the 49ers' new lead back.
Man, just so many great hopes for this 49ers team as Super Bowl runners-up to see if they could make a run this season. So unfortunate to see how the injuries have impacted their season. The Niners had a 78% chance to make the playoffs entering the season. That was according to ESPN Analytics, second highest in the NFL behind only the Chiefs. I mean, that's how stacked they looked on paper. Even after their disappointing 5-4 start, San Fran still had a 52% chance to make the postseason. But after they lost their last 3 games, their playoff window was pretty much closed, and now just a 9% chance to get in. Now, Mina, the season pretty much over with San Francisco. You heard the news there just from Adam. What happens now?
Well, at first, I think it's worth taking a beat to actually just look at the extent of the injuries that got them to this place, that continue to plague this team. I asked our stats team to put together a list of everyone who's been injured for multiple games. Wow. That right there is a Pro Bowl team on its own, basically. I mean, it is an insane group of players, and I think that's something that's going to trickle. It's something we kind of probably, I wouldn't say we should have seen coming, but last year the Niners team was so healthy, the third healthiest team in football according to FTN Fantasy, and they played so much football, attrition tends to hit. Now, to answer your question about spinning it forward, this offense will figure it out. I've seen Kyle Shanahan make more efficient offenses with greater deficiencies of talent. They have young players who will get run, I think, between now and the end of the season. Ricky Pearsall, they drafted in the first round. Isaac Guerendo, you mentioned. My bigger concern, Ryan, is on defense, because when they pay Brock Purdy, and they're going to pay him, I would be shocked if they didn't, that is where I think we're going to see some pretty significant roster cuts, whether it's Travarius Ward or Javon Hargrave, who's out for the season. You've got some really big contracts tied up on that side of the ball that they're going to have to move on from, and there's going to be a lot of pressure defensively on a unit that really hasn't been the same this year.
Yeah, and I think that's still going to be the huge thing as you spin this forward. I don't necessarily believe that an entire Super Bowl window is closed for a team with Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy, who has shown he can be an extremely good quarterback in this league. But what are you going to do on the defensive side of the ball? And to me, a side of the ball that we've seen you continue to regress. This is a defense that is nowhere near what it once was in the heyday of the San Francisco 49ers. So once you do pay Brock Purdy, how are you going to implement some pieces into this defense to breathe new life and energy? Because right now, I think it's a dead side of the football for this team.
Guys, I don't know. It feels for me that injuries derailed a really legit Super Bowl window. I'll go back to the NFC Championship game from 2 seasons ago, where I thought San Francisco was going to win that game, and Brock Purdy goes out. And if he doesn't go out, are they the 2022 NFC Super Bowl rep? And if you look at some of the injuries and how you spin it forward, they got to make decisions on Brock Purdy. They're going to have to make decisions on McCaffrey's future. They're going to have to make decisions on Deebo Samuel's future. They're going to have to make decisions on Hufanga's future and Dre Greenlaw's. Charverius. I mean, it's not just Brock Purdy. It's a multitude of players that are legit stars for this football team. And man, what a window that they had that feels like for injury, at least this iteration of it, is over.
Yeah, even watching last night, it just felt like that game was a microcosm of their season in so many ways. Things just aren't going their way. Sometimes bad luck is involved, unfortunately. All right, Swagoo, what's coming up next on NFL Live?
Well, let me inject a little happiness from this Debbie Downer conversation we just had about the 49ers. Shout out to Ryan Kelly and his wife, Emma Kelly. They threw a baby shower for local families. This is another B&B doing the most good, handling his business beyond the field. Shout out to him and his wife, Emma, for throwing a baby shower for local families that are expecting. So the B&Bs are not just on the field making plays, we off the field making plays along with the family. We affect the whole community, because that's what we do. B&B coming up next. Shout out to Ryan Kelly and Emma Kelly.
Injuries from Sunday's game action. The biggest and most impactful, San Francisco running back Christian McCaffrey, who is likely done for the season with a PCL injury, but we are still waiting on updates on that. Trevor Lawrence just came back from injury. He could miss more time again after suffering a concussion thanks to a hit from Azeez Al-Shaair, who could also be suspended for that hit. And New Orleans have lost Taysom Hill, their Swiss Army knife on offense, for the season with a severe knee injury. As we usually do at this time on Monday afternoons, let's welcome in CBS Sports HQ injury analyst Marty Jaramillo to talk about some of these injuries. Marty, let's start with the most significant one, being the 49ers running back Christian McCaffrey, who suffered a potentially season-ending PCL injury in that loss to the Bills on a snowy Sunday night. Walk us through the PCL injury and what that could look like in terms of a recovery.
Well, Jeremy, it seems like that black cloud that hangs over the 49ers now travels with them as well, with Christian McCaffrey now being the recipient yet again of more bad luck. He sustained a PCL injury, also known as a posterior cruciate ligament, one of the main stabilizing ligaments of the knee, but not the most important. So it actually occurred on the one play before he took himself out. He actually landed when his knee was fully flexed at about 90 degrees, and he landed on the shin bone, or the tibia, the lower leg bone here. He landed directly on it, on that frozen tundra in Buffalo Bills camp, and that shin bone went backwards or posteriorly, tearing that ligament. That ligament usually heals very well without surgery, as long as it's not a complete tear. I expect him to fully recover, but here's the issue. It can range anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks of recovery, depending on the extent of tear, without surgery. Just as an example, Puka Nacua had a 6-week delay in coming back with the same injury. This late in the season, I wouldn't be surprised if he had. This is actually a season-ending injury. Now, barring any surgery, which I don't expect him to have, he'll actually be ready for team OTAs in the late spring. Listen, this is a season Christian McCaffrey would just want to forget. Could never get anything going, but I do expect him to be healthy and then be effective and very productive.
Yeah, missed 8 games already with the Achilles strains that he was dealing with. But Marty, we were on video when you were doing the demonstration. So can you just demonstrate again for us what the PCL injury looked like?
Absolutely. Well, Jeremy, so the lower shin bone, known as the tibia, he actually landed when the knee fully flexed at about 90 degrees. He landed directly on the shin bone. That forces the tibia, or the shin bone, to go backwards or posterior. It's basically the opposite of the ACL injury, where the tibia shifts forward or anteriorly. The PCL injury is also known as a dashboard injury with head-on motor vehicle accidents, where the dashboard hits that same lower shin bone, driving it backwards. Once again, doesn't tear completely often, rarely requires surgery, and does heal well on its own. It's one of the least stabilizing ligaments of the knee.
Yeah, and we'll wait to hear what the exact diagnosis is for Christian McCaffrey and the prognosis that the 49ers will give out once the scans are completed. All right, Tampa Bay quarterback Baker Mayfield reportedly dealing with an Achilles contusion after his ankle was stepped on by Jadeveon Clowney. He said after the game he thought he'd popped his Achilles, Marty. How does he treat this, and could this affect his mobility moving forward?
Well, the silence was deafening in Buccaneer Nation. He sustained an Achilles contusion, kind of rare because of how it happened. He landed with the Panther defender, full strength, full speed, directly with the cleats on that tendon. He himself was terrified that he actually tore his Achilles. Thankfully, he came back 2 plays later, fully taped up and supported. Here's the issue. The tightness and swelling set in today and tomorrow. That will swell up with fluid. He will also have scans to make sure there was no tear based on that impact. Barring any tears, I fully expect him to miss practice all week long, have a game time decision whether he plays. But if there's no tear, and he will have aggressive treatments to control inflammation, maintain range of motion, and maintain strength. And he will also be padded and well taped for support for the game. I fully expect him to play, but they are dodging bullets there in Bucks County.
Marty, what does that treatment look like? Is that simply massage? Is it stretch? Is it cold? Is it hot? What does treatment for this look like, considering he's not going to be practicing?
Jeremy, great question. It really is everything you mentioned and then some. There are some very sophisticated and technological advances for inflammation, something called EPAT, also known as shockwave therapy, which maximizes blood flow, breaks down scar tissue, and also makes that tendon much more elastic. Definitely hands-on manual therapy, deep tissue type of work. Also, Normatec compression boots that maximize blood flow, ice, heat, any combination thereof to just get him ready. The reason why I say everything and then some, because every player responds to different modalities at different times. And oftentimes we give them everything but the kitchen sink. Why? Because we really don't care what works as long as one of those things we know will help.
And we know Baker's a warrior, so it's going to be tough to keep him out, no matter what the treatment looks like. L.A. Chargers rookie wide receiver Ladd McConkey has had an injury-filled first year. He was limited most of Sunday with a knee injury, but was having a good outing before he exited the game. His head coach, Jim Harbaugh, says we'll see in terms of his status. What does his week look like if he hopes to play in Week 14?
Well, for the rookie and that key player for that playoff contender, well, you and I might as well look at the tea leaves because very little information coming out of the Chargers camp. I understand and respect and remember Harbaugh has come out of the college world where they do like throwing tea leaves. All that said, we don't have that much information. But when it comes to knee injuries, we're always most worried about ligament injuries. Why? They lead to instability. So barring any significant ligament injuries, consider this a week-to-week designation. Rehab includes aggressive treatments, once again, to treat swelling that comes from any kind of injury that can lead to instability, as well as maintaining range of motion and maintaining strength. And we have a myriad of techniques for that. So week-to-week designation, as we know, the story is very fluid, more information to come, but without any significant ligament injuries, week-to-week designation, fingers crossed for them, they need it to be contenders in the playoffs.
Hey, at least we know what body part it is. I mean, I'm used to hockey where it's LBI and UBI, right? Lower body, upper body.
Always
That's
lower body, below the waist.